Urgent. New attack from Belarus. Putin and Lukashenko are rattling their sabers again, and everything is following the alarming scenario of 2021, when after maneuvers, a full-scale invasion began. President Zelensky sounds the alarm. Not only Ukraine is in danger, but also Poland and Lithuania. Is a new invasion really on the way? All the details in the report.
Russia is planning to drag Belarus into the war and is preparing a new attack from its territory this summer. President Zelensky stated this during his speech at the Three Seas Summit. According to him, the planned joint exercises of the aggressor country and its satellite pose a real threat that must be taken seriously. Similar exercises, which participants simply called exercises, turned out to be actual combat coordination before the invasion of Ukraine. This is usually how they start in a new language.
This is exactly how its new attacks usually begin. But against whom this time I do not know. Ukraine or Lithuania, Poland. God forbid, no. But you all must be ready. All our institutions are prepared to cooperate. Through our intelligence, we are ready to share information about threats in our region. We also propose to intensify interaction between security advisors so that each country can help end this war diplomatically.
The Zapad 20s and 25 exercises are planned by the countries for September. And this means experts say that the first Russian military personnel will start arriving in Belarus as early as July. The total number of troops participating has not yet been officially announced. At the beginning of the year, Belarusian stated that these exercises would be the largest. Currently, anonymous sources have informed the Belarusian opposition media Zerkalo that the number is about 100,000 military personnel.
According to the information we have received, it is possible that these exercises will take place in triangles. The first triangle is the border of Belarus, Lithuania, and Poland, the well-known Suwalki corridor. The second triangle is the junction of borders, which includes Ukraine, Poland, and Belarus. Accordingly, if the main exercises take place there, the European Union will be forced to deploy its reserves to protect me against a possible potential strike at this section of the border. And Ukraine will be forced to allocate part of its reserves to protect the Ukrainian border from the Belarusian side. I am not ready to say whether aggression will be used or applied, but the very fact of creating these threats and risks will entail certain consequences. Because if Ukraine is forced to pull part of its reserves, it will have fewer forces and capabilities to defend its territories at the line of confrontation to liberate its territories. I think this might be the plan of both Putin and his ally Lukashenko.
It is known that for the Zapad 2025 exercises, the Belarusians are trying to attract international observers. Already the media are saying that representatives from Hungary and Slovakia will be monitoring how the allied state plans to advance westward. At the large-scale exercises in 2021, observers were also present, and they were essentially watching the plan for the destruction of Ukraine. Chief, you have already convened.
Exercises are a method of exerting pressure on countries and demonstrating one's military capabilities. Because after them, some ultimatum might be declared. It can be announced, even during these exercises. And if it is not accepted, these exercises could escalate into aggression. In 2022, let me remind you, the exercises began in December 2021, and at that time we heard Putin's ultimatum that NATO should return to the 1997 borders, that the Baltic states should leave NATO, because according to the agreements on gaining their sovereignty and independence, after the collapse of the USSR, one of the conditions was that they would not be members of anti-Russian blocs and would not join NATO. And it is precisely from this that the Russian narrative emerges, and these exercises stem from it as well. As soon as they begin, we will hear a new ultimatum, and the observers will act as agents of influence, telling us that there is such an armada, you cannot withstand it. Now, let's negotiate while concessions can still be made.
In an interview with the publication Current Time, representatives of the organization Belpol, created by former Belarusian security officers who opposed the Lukashenko regime, stated that, in their opinion, the exercises Zapad 2025 are unlikely to pose a direct threat to the Baltic countries and Poland. However, the military power in Minsk is only gaining momentum.
By the year 2028, on the territory of Belarus, there will be the capability to produce around 300,000 rocket projectiles annually for the Grad system, approximately 450,000 artillery shells, and more than 100,000 unmanned aerial vehicles of various types. Virtually all Russian equipment, even the oldest Russian equipment, will be modernized thanks to Belarusian enterprises that produce sights for armored vehicles.
The year 2028, it was specifically referred to by NATO as the year of potential confrontation between the alliance and Russia. According to experts, the accuracy of this forecast largely depends on what kind of peace deal can be imposed on the states. Ukrainian experts are less optimistic. According to their forecast, the West might face military aggression from Russia and its satellites even earlier. And let no one be misled by the fact that the Russians are already sending donkeys and cannon fodder recruited from all over the world to the battlefield. The country aggressor, which knows the methods of modern warfare, has enough strength for aggression. Therefore, the democratic world must do everything it could to prevent exercises, combat coordination, and thus aggression from the territory of Belarus. But for now, Ukraine's partners do not even have a common decision on what role Belarus plays at the current advocacy stage of the war.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Crimea is on fire. The Ukrainian armed forces destroyed a super installation of Russia. Then this is just the beginning. Panic among the occupiers. Russia is urgently redeploying troops. Has the battle for Crimea really begun? Meanwhile, Trump makes a sharp turn. Officially, the USA is supplying weapons to the Ukrainian armed forces. Putin is furious, and his army is already rushing towards Dnipropetrovsk. All for a new victory by May 9th. Watch for more details.
72 occupiers killed and wounded. This is the work of the Juar warriors over the past week. Also during the specified period, scouts on the front destroyed and hit 26 Russian vehicles, 4 armored vehicles, 4 artillery systems, 7 attack drones, 6 communication antennas, 4 electronic warfare systems, and more than 140 enemy engineering and fortification structures. In these frames, the work of the pilots of the 59th Brigade against the enemy during the assault on Nadivka in Donbas. In the temporarily occupied Crimea, near the city of Saki, a radar station of the S-400 Triumph anti-aircraft missile system was destroyed. And this is far from an isolated case. Apparently, the Russians cannot protect the peninsula they have occupied, which is why they are concentrating their troops there.
As of today, we see that the process, or rather the stage, of the demilitarization of Crimea is ongoing. And today we are talking about the destruction of military facilities on the territory of the temporarily occupied peninsula. Today we are talking about the fact that among these targets, first and foremost is the airfield infrastructure, the air defense infrastructure, in order to enable our other forces to operate more actively, for example, in the sky.
Nevertheless, the situation on the front of the Ukrainian-Russian war is dynamic. The Ukrainian Defense Forces have advanced in the Kursk region, which, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense's narrative, is completely liberated, as well as near Toretsk in the Donetsk region. At the same time, the army of the aggressor country Russia has advanced near Lyman and in the Toretsk direction.
In some locations, unfortunately, there is tactical advancement of the enemy in certain directions, and there is an improvement in our tactical positions, particularly around Toretsk, although the situation in the mentioned areas remains very difficult. And Lyman is a very difficult situation, as are Toretsk and Kursk, because the enemy is trying everywhere to make the most of what they have today, to press in these directions and attempt to fulfill at least their tactical objectives.
The occupiers do not abandon hope of breaking through to the administrative borders of the Dnipropetrovsk region.
We clearly see that this whole topic of Dnipropetrovsk has emerged precisely among Russian propagandists and the Russian command. There is a large informational accompaniment, a major informational psychological special operation being conducted by the Russian side, because Putin needs some statements about victories, but there are no victories. On the other hand, we are responding to all these challenges. I am speaking about the defense forces, and Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi has given his assessment, as well as what the defense forces will be doing in this direction in the near future.
There is more news for Ukrainian defense. The White House has approved the first export of weapons to Ukraine worth $50 million through direct commercial sales to Kyiv. This happened immediately after the signing of a deal for Americans to use Ukrainian mineral resources.
We are talking about and discussing partnership relations. And the fact that Ukraine, among other things, can use a commercial format to acquire these types of weapons that we need today. Therefore, it is obvious that mutually beneficial cooperation, the economic security of our country, is also the national security of our state.
What is the real difference between the Russian and Ukrainian armies? Ukrainians protect people while Russians kill. According to Russian telegram channels at night, a soldier of the occupying army, reportedly possibly under the influence of drugs, entered the home of the Larin family with many children in the village of Giri, Dura, Kursk region under the pretext of checking documents, and shot the couple. 41-year-old Olesya Larina died from gunshot wounds and her husband is in intensive care. The couple's children were not harmed.